research that's equally valuable.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Damon.
I'm Damon Patterson,
I'm Franny Knight.
and this is the KC Dev Report.
Yes, it is. And this is our 5th episode.
This is our 5th episode, and today's episode is we're calling it the School of Dev or Development 101. So, in our past episodes, we noticed a lot of elements surrounding development that kind of we keep seeing it. We keep seeing the tax instruments and the tax tools or vehicles that are used to develop or that are used to entice development. So we decided that we was going to dedicate an episode to just talk about that, the ways that development is given incentives and funds to create new projects in Kansas City. So that's what this episode is about. Those tax tools, instruments, or vehicles that are used in development.
And really, honestly, this episode, it's all that, and we're accumulating some cool things. From some maps that are going to be fun to show tonight. And I've been waiting to share my stack of Kansas City Business Journal, where I learn about all the development in Kansas City that I've been saying. This is just a small stack, and we're going to get to look at these tonight. I'm so excited.
And I have maps, which you can see some of these, which if you're interested in anything that we talk about or show during the episodes, you can always go to the Facebook page or the website or any of the social media sites, which is the KC DEV report, and you can request show notes. So that's links, transcripts, and any maps that we talk about. So we'll send those, and we'll have those up on the page as well.
Yeah, and so like tonight we have Damon has done this amazing research and put together our outline. We'll share that with you. It's got a lot of great resources. So it's just when you do ask for us, we just want to get your email so we can send it to you through email, and hopefully you'll want to be notified when we're going live next and what the next show is going to be. We are also loading our shows onto a podcast that Damon just got uploaded today, and you can find the last 4 episodes. Are they up yet, or how many do we have up?
Yeah, so after this show, you'll be able to see all the past shows, which will be, of course, the videos, which will be YouTube, and then the page, which is the KC Dev Report. But you'll also be able to listen to the actual podcast audio. Pretty much, it'll be on all of the usual podcast sites that most people listen to podcasts. So that'll be should be up tonight, a couple of hours. It takes a while to load, but you'll be able to see that after this show.
That's great.
And all the shows after this, you'll be able to just listen if you want to while you're driving or doing other stuff.
Damon's just a jack of all trades. He's been working hard at getting this going. So we'll continue to do this live and also have it as a podcast. We're so excited to have it available for both. Okay, so let's get in. Okay, so I know that everybody knows what a tax is, right? Like this is where all development that is publicly funded comes from is a tax base. But there are different types of taxes, right? So where do developers pull from when it comes to these tax instruments?
Well, there's a few different types of tax incentives, as well as agencies that use tax dollars to kind of, I like to call it flirting with development, because these breaks that developers get, it literally makes or breaks what gets developed. Developers actually seek out zones and property that are designated, and some of the usual one that you hear, which we there's a bunch, but we're gonna try and kind of stick to what we've been seeing the most in our past episodes and in our research, which is we have the chapter 353, and then we have the TIF, and then we have agencies like the PIDA and LCRA, and we'll go over some of these, the IDA, the NSP, the EEZ, there's all these, and then the TDD, which we talked about in the last episode, with the Transportation Development District, Urban Renewal, NID, CID, HUD's Community Development Block Grants, and new to the group is the Qualified Opportunity Zones. So those are just a few that developers use or seek out when they're developing.
So so there's so many, right? And again, if you want our outline, you can let us know. Just put in the comments you'd like to have the show notes, and it'll have all the links and all the definitions of these, where they come from. But when I was first learned about one today that we're going to talk about, which is LCRA, which stands for Land Clearance Redevelopment what's the A?
Oh, Land Clearance for Redevelopment.
Okay, thank you. And that's been around since 1968, right? And I first learned about that when I was teaching our course on the history of race and real estate, and how they came into existence to develop to help with blight. That was the whole thing. They're in existence now. It's a board that anybody who wants to develop, that wants any kind of tax credits, they go through LICRA as one piece that they can get. But what can they get from LICRA? How do they qualify for LICRA? Because it's a big one. It's like in my stack of business journals, all the development, a lot of them are using LICRA. They're using other things too, but LICRA is one of the, and I'm saying LICRA, it's probably not pronounced.
Yeah, it's LCRA.
Yes.
So funny enough, most of these, because some of these are actual types of tax incentives, and then some of these are actual agencies, which LICRA is an agency. And I want to say all of these deal with blight and removing blight. And funny enough, so LICRA, you basically, you can get tax abatement or tax incentives, tax breaks for a defined period of time, up to 10 years on 75%. And they help with land assembly, and they have the power of eminent domain, bond financing, and pass-through lien clearance. And let me say this again, in all of our episodes, we try to express that we are not developers.
No, we are not.
We're just, we're two people who love Kansas City, and We love to learn about what's happening in Kansas City. And this podcast came about from Franny and I kind of just having conversations about development and how interesting it is and how many different layers and facets that's involved with development. So we decided to start this podcast and share what we're learning and create the show.
And I'm spreading out the word is what I'm doing on my phone. So just so you know, I'm paying attention, but I want to get everybody to see that we're on. But and I will say too, I am a residential real estate agent. I run Urban Cool KC. The Urban Cool Network is another division of us that is across the country that is sponsoring this show. And I believe the development is the dirty secrets of a city that
Can be.
people don't know about, just everyday people. So the thing is, taxes, our collective taxes go for our collective living. So we have schools where our taxes come help pay for, infrastructure, Medicaid, Medicare for some people's healthcare, not all people's healthcare, and the development of the city. So we're all collectively putting our money together to help these things come about, and I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Streets,
Love
bridges, sewers, water lines, utilities in general, fire departments, police departments, infrastructure. Like
Yeah.
you said, infrastructure. That's
Yeah.
what-
And so, but what happens in taking our taxes in these instruments we're talking about tonight, like LCRA, and we're gonna talk about a few others, that developers get our taxes to help develop buildings, apartments, grocery stores, any kind of retail. We can go bigger. We've been talking about Google getting the acreage recently
Data
to build their data center. And a lot of times the city and these entities like LCRA, these agencies that award these developers these tax incentives, these tax credits, most of the time what we hear why that's a good thing for us collectively is jobs. It's going to create jobs. And
Right.
again, who's not for jobs, right? I mean, so we're not like this isn't it's complex, right? It's not black and white. When I just keep remembering when there was a development project in the works for the old TWA building, and BNIN, the architectural firm, was going to redevelop that building using LCRA tax credits and the construction
TIF.
money and TIF. They're in a CID, and there was a group of citizens who stepped up and said, but that's taken away from the school budget. So it's hard to figure out who's gonna get what money and is it equal? We're all paying for it. We've all got to be aware of our money going in. Is it done in an equitable way? Is it done in a way that really serves all of us and not just some people? And we're just learning, like Damon just said, we're just learning we just watch this stuff and we're like, how's that working? And can we get to the bottom of it and figure it out a little bit better so we're all more aware of how are developers getting money? And are they making money?
Yeah, and I think that's that's kind of an
course they are,
ongoing
yeah.
balance, especially when we talk about the education system, because I mean, if you're honest, developers go in and with any investment, people are looking at, what's the return? So I think a lot of the decision making when developers decide, and the different agencies in the city and all interested parties that join on these developments, they're looking at, well, what's the return on investment? I think every investor is a smart investor wants to know what the return is. And I think that the difficult balancing act is, okay, it is about return, but also when you use tax dollars and those tax dollars are supposed to be for infrastructure, it's trying to find that balance between return and infrastructure and helping Blight and the community and the disenfranchised people in the community. So it's a balancing act, and it's important that people understand, which is part of why we are doing this. It's important that people understand exactly how things work. I can say, before this project, just being an average person or a citizen, we don't always know what's going on. We see construction, we see cranes, we see buildings disappear and new buildings appear. We see, buildings getting blocked off, and then, stuff is renovated, and some stuff makes it out and it says, well, that building's gonna become this, and that's gonna become this, and that's no longer that, that's getting torn down to make this. But we don't really know how that really worked out, or what deals took place behind closed doors, and different meetings and agencies decided, well, okay, we're gonna give this developer these incentives for 10 years or 20 years or whatever. So that's part of why we're doing what we're doing, is to try to understand it and share what we're understanding. And again, most of these developments that we've been seeing are supposedly to help with blight and get rid of blight, which we kept seeing it so much so. And I'll just read here what the definitions of blight that they're going by.
Can I just say that when we were talking, we did a little rehearsal last night, and we were going through all this, and I'm like, maybe we should call this the School of Blight instead of
Right.
the School of Dev, because it's like blight is
It's
how the developers get the most money. Whether it's truly blight or not is a whole nother thing. So we'll let Damon now tell you what the definition
point,
of
blight
blight is.
is kind of married to development. I mean, it just comes up on every project that I've researched, and that we talk about blight just keeps coming up. And I'll just kind of go over what they're defining blight as. And these are 5 factors. Defective or inadequate street layout, unsanitary or unsafe conditions, deterioration, improper subdivision or obsolete plotting, the existence of conditions which endanger life or property by fire or other causes. So those are just a few factors that define blight. Retards the provision of housing accommodations, constitutes an economic or social liability, constitute a menace to public health, safety, welfare. Those are just a few
Right.
that defines blight. And
So let's just look at an article in the Kansas City Business Journal. So this is we'll come back to that one. This is the Mark Twain Rehab Starts Next Chapter. So the Mark Twain is the historic building, beautiful building at the 11th Street in Baltimore. And there are 2 outside developers, one from Baltimore, or one from Washington State and New York. They came together to redevelop this building, this beautiful building, and they're using LCRA, which is LCRA is based on getting rid of blight. In 1968, they've not changed their mission statement, and so this building at 11th and Baltimore was considered blight, and so this is just one building that's been, and they're developing it into, guess what they're developing it into?
What?
apartments.
Another,
If you didn't see our show last week, it's apartment bonanza in Kansas City right now. And so, because, if you develop a building into apartments, that's an evergreen project, you're gonna make money on that.
Yeah.
Into infinity.
Yeah.
So they've got a 25-year tax abatement from an LCRA that is the one who said they can do it because it's a blighted neighborhood. Now, I just ask, y'all can type in here, or, if you're watching this later, do you think the area at 11th Street in Baltimore is blighted?
no, not,
That's just common sense, right?
yeah, common sense, I
Common
wouldn't
sense.
say that it was blighted.
But by definition,
They could say, they could pick, inadequate street layout, or, they could say something was unsafe, or, they could say deterioration. They could pick and point out something and say the concrete, is chipping,
right,
or there's graffiti, or, it's a broad definition.
Yeah.
And,
and so are they, again, because they're using our tax pool to versus our taxes going to education,
right,
to healthcare,
Potholes.
to potholes, to infrastructure, to the grid, to getting everybody Wi-Fi. There's many things that we all agree that we want to have as our collective pool of money. The police force, the police.
fire department,
Fire department,
Or-
they're really low right now, by the way.
updating
They
water
don't have enough
lines or
money
the
for
sewer
our police
system.
department right now, so it's again, the decisions, and that's why we elect our city officials, right? But the problem is our city officials aren't necessarily the one making these decisions.
Not all
It's
of
these agencies
them.
that are awarding these tax abatements. Now, Mark is another agency that y'all may be familiar with. It's Mid-America Regional Council, and Mark represents 8 counties and 130 cities, I think. And Mark is kind of the receivership for federal money. So you're all watching, you all may not be, I'm watching the infrastructure bill getting passed in the Senate, and now it's in the House, and it's like right now 1.5 trillion. It may add another 3 trillion, and that money is going to come, whatever is allocated for our area, Mark receives that. And then Mark sends it to the city, to the entities that actually write checks to contractors, or the agencies that get tax credits. Mark is part of that too. So you've got layers. What I'm trying to say is,
Yeah.
it's not simple. It's not easy for us to go, okay, well, if that's being built and it's blight, but we don't really think it's blight. I go back to the BNIM development of the TWA building in the Crossroads, and the organization. Listen, if any of you who are following us that were part of that school getting school funding organization, I'd love to hear from you, because I loved what you did, and I've lost track of you on Facebook. But I loved that they said because they were using blight. So we got to circle back. That they were saying that building and that area was blight, and these school people said, no, it is not blight. You're taking money from the school pool to develop for a for-profit organization that's making money, and that's not right. And they won. I couldn't believe it. That was one really, I thought it was a big victory by a really small group who really had a voice. But it's hard, man. This is complicated. How do you go up against and say, well, that's not blight?
Right, when on paper it's defined as blight.
Right.
So you know, and there's groups that have come out and kind of become watchdogs on development to kind of point out when developers are misusing these tax instruments and vehicles and bonds. There's also the creation of bonds that form projects, which are technically loans in a sense. I mean, when you break it down, they're loans, you know, and they're just called bonds that investors can, in a way, some of these bonds and opportunity zones have become tax shelters
Yes.
for people with wealth and with money,
Yes.
because you can, in a sense, you can, when you talk about capital gains and getting taxed, people can hold off and really totally divert paying taxes by putting their money into these bonds for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or into these opportunity zones to not be taxed.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
it's a way for, frankly, wealthy people to hide their money or freeze their money from being taxed
Right.
for long periods of time. And I say wealthy because the average person doesn't have enough money to divert for 10, 15 years. You can't touch it. The average person
Right.
is spending what they make.
Right.
So yes, it's
So when you hear on the news, I mean, it's all over that Amazon for how many years, it's the perfect example, hasn't paid any taxes. Now, how does that happen, right? Like how does
these are some of the ways that it's
right,
happening.
exactly. They have good accountants and lawyers and they know how
Advisors,
to
you
move
know.
the money here, move it here, invest it here, do it here, do it here. And so if you're like me, and I think Damon too, you know, I didn't grow up around that. I didn't I didn't have parents who were doing that kind of thing. And so if we wanted to go develop something, we're way out of the game, right? Like
Right.
we don't have all these. First, we don't have a bunch of money to come in. Although I don't think you always have to have money to do this, but you have to know the game,
Yeah, and
and
I
that's
that's
really you just have to
part
know
of-
the game.
what these developers has figured out is the game, and many of them have gotten really clever at spending other people's money. I think that's part of what's going on. And I want to say also, I don't think all development is bad. I think there's good development, and I think development is good for a city, but developers and development that use tax money unchecked and unbalanced is definitely bad. And there's tons of studies that show, you know, and that might be another episode. There's tons of studies that show that these tax incentives, these tax breaks and abatements directly affect things like education. And I think when that's happening, we should be paying attention. We should be speaking up and getting involved and start going to meetings and make our voices heard. But we don't know. Most
Right.
of us don't even know that this
It's a
is
lot,
going on.
yeah.
You know, and it's a lot for me just learning all this stuff. I'm just now learning a lot of it. You know, and I'm still learning up until today.
Yeah. Okay, so there's an opportunity for you to go next August 17th at the Southeast Community Center, which is at Slow Park, basically. They're having a PIA meeting. So let's talk about what's a PIA. It's PIEA. So what's a PIA? Because I want people to go to this meeting because it's going to be very interesting. We've already had 3 PIA meetings. This is the last one. They're awarding PIA money to people who bring forth projects that they think the community needs for 2022. It'll be awarded for May 2022. So
PIEA stands for the Planned Industrial Expansion Authority of Kansas City. And it was formed in Missouri state statutes in 1968. So PIEA provides a vehicle for clearing blight, once again, fostering development and redevelopment activities in areas designated by Kansas City, Missouri. PIEA can grant tax abatement of new property taxes resulting from new construction or rehabilitation for up to 25 years. So project assistance may include that tax abatement up to 25 years, sales tax exemption on construction materials during the construction process, and also power of eminent domain, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, eminent domain is always very interesting, so I'm looking for a marker so I can write it blank for us. But, so you as a citizen can bring, now, it's too late now, you can't pull it together for next, whatever is that, Tuesday, the 17th, 6 o'clock at the Southeast Community Center, which is at Swope Park, okay? I don't have the address, we'll put it in the show notes. You, everyday citizen can bring forth, a project in their neighborhood that they think needs our money. It needs help. So, one group last year brought forth, they wanted to turn the park that they lived around, the tennis courts that are never used for tennis anymore, to pickleball courts. It didn't get passed, but they did some research, they got the city planners, helped them to come find how much that was going to cost and so forth. There's another project that I know was put forth in our neighborhood, there's a section of, on homes, where there's no sidewalks. And that's always something that the city's interested in people bringing and there's a lot of foot traffic in between this one section. It's very costly though, like $100 million. I mean, it's a lot to put in a mile of even just one sidewalks, but, people have been hit on that stretch because there are no lights, there's no sidewalks, there's no shoulder, so
Just
you can't
infrastructure.
walk, right? So that's one thing that's been proposed. The Hyde Park Park over off of Gillum, they put in the spray park. That was a PIA.
Didn't know that.
Yes, so the neighborhood got together, they went to the city and said, we want this in. So every year, there's an opportunity for all of us to bring forth some potential PIA projects. So
Yeah.
it's not just developers, they do give an opportunity. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
That we can actually, I think they said they have over 600 proposals from citizens a year, and I think 3 or 4 get accepted every year. But, that's kind of fun. We should do a PIA
Yeah.
next year.
We're
We're a little late, but
And I wanna say, I think, that's a big part of why we decided to do this podcast was one, to educate ourselves and then to share what we're learning. And hopefully the information that we learn and we share, we inspire other Kansas Cityans to get involved and know that there is funding. So you don't always have to be, wealthy to be a developer. You just gotta learn these tools and these instruments that developers know. And when people's voices come together and people do petitions and the numbers grow, you can get involved in your city and make a difference in using these tools that are here and become developers.
Another tool that I'd like to discuss with everybody is the CID. Tell us about the CID.
So the CID stands for Community Improvement District.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, a lot of these tools and instruments or vehicles are designations in certain neighborhoods and blocks that are defined as these different designations, like the CID. This is a CID neighborhood, or this is a TIF neighborhood. So this particular
like
map
this,
is
River
a
Market.
community improvement district.
So the River Market is a CID, and 9th and Central
Mhm.
downtown is a CID. And where did you get these maps at?
So all of these maps every city, but particularly we're talking about Kansas City. Kansas City, Missouri has a parcel viewer, and you can create different layers. If you go to, and we'll put that link up for parcel viewer, you can go to layers and plots, and you have different options of overlaying the map with these different designations. So that particular one is an overlay of the community improvement district, which that district can issue bonds and levy taxes and special assessments for projects for basically to finance public improvements and services, and once again blight removal.
Okay, so we have 8 CIDs in this downtown and River Market section. It's a lot of CIDs. So I do know when we talked last week about the tiny home village, the area that they're looking to put it in now, it's like at 12th Street, and is that a CID? Do you know?
I'm not sure about that. I need to look at that.
I wonder how they're because CID, that would be a good tool for them to be able to build this tiny home village for the unhoused. That would be interesting to know what they're using because when you want to propose something to house the unhoused, that's another reason why you need to learn that, like, where did we find money to do that?
Right.
If a developer can go into a block like 13th Street and Broadway, they're building the Hyatt House Hotel at 13th Street, and they're not using CID, although it is in a CID, another LCRA, LICRA, to get tax breaks on this because it was an empty lot and it was considered blight. So if a developer can do this, then we should be able to do it for building a tiny village, a tiny house village for the unhoused, to be able to find what are the tools that we can use. Can we use PIA? Can we go to LCRA and use that? Is it in what does the CID actually, can they give some tax incentives for that too? So I find when there's 8 of these in this one area, and it's all over the city, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could hold up map after map after map of all the CIDs.
Yeah.
But there are other things too, like what's another?
You have the community development grant from HUD. Once again, we have the qualified opportunity zones, and all of these. If I was to try and sum it up, all of these are pretty much, I summed it up. I gave myself a sentence and I said, tax tools, vehicles, and instruments for clearing blight and fostering development. So all of these are, in essence, ways that tax dollars are used for development. And that might be abatements, that might be incentives, or the creation of bonds,
Yes.
which all help or are used for development.
A big project recently that's also been going on that I think serves the community well, it's not for money making, and is the Kansas City Museum up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they used historic tax credits, so that's another instrument that's available, and I'm not sure what organization actually awards those. I'm guessing maybe the historic, Kansas City Historic Society is part of that. I'm sure all my Northeast people who watch this later will tell me exactly how the Kansas City Museum is being redeveloped. Because it was, I would say that was a building that was in blight. It was really run down. It needed so much work, and Corinth Hall is if you have not been to the Northeast to see the Kansas City Museum, and it's having a grand opening in September, and they've been working on that. They've fundraised for it. I find it interesting. Do we ever see developers who are developing these buildings downtown, or do they do fundraising?
Probably not in the way that we think. I'm sure they do fundraising.
But that
not
is
in
one
the
way to
way
raise,
we
that's one way to get money, and usually fundraising happens when, I feel like when a development project is happening and there is fundraising going on, that's a sign to me there's something good going on here.
Yeah.
Because when the public gives more of their money, already our money is being sent in for taxes to do these kinds of things, but we're gonna give even more money, then that's something that we truly value,
Yeah, some
right?
people are personally invested.
Right, and I almost feel like there should be more money available from these tools and instruments than is available for apartment development or, even Google 50 acres of land, for what reason?
Multi-billion-dollar companies
Or-
get tax breaks.
Okay, now, I have to go through my papers, right? Okay, so listen, if you all don't read the Kansas City Business Journal, understand there's a lot of stuff to read out there. I have been an avid business journal reader forever. I have stacks and stacks of these papers, and I have to tell you, I get a little angry about some things, because it feels like a lot of what is written is about the top layer of the wealthy people who are developing and getting tax credits, and it just seems like it's over and over and over and over again, and I get frustrated with that. That's part of why we're doing this, is because I couldn't stand to read one more article about a wealthy developer group, and it's not usually just one, it's a collection of them. It's fine if they wanna build, if they wanna come in and make money and develop and bring jobs, I'm all for that. But where's the line? Where do you draw the line of giving them 25 years where they don't have to pay any taxes on that building? Or they don't have to pay sales tax, or they don't have to pay for the construction materials tax. That's when I start going, wait, when?
Yeah.
When does that, how much is too much?
Yeah.
How
I
much
think
is helping somebody who's gonna eventually make money on that project? How much is too much? And they do always say that they're bringing jobs, and we can't argue against bringing jobs, right?
Right. Yeah, that's usually what I hear the most is how many jobs are being created.
Because that's easy to defend, right? None of us wanna say, hey, don't do that, that would take those jobs somewhere else. We don't, and for how many years we had the border wars with Kansas and Missouri and trying to bring the company over here and the company over here, and we're gonna bring jobs and we're gonna bring jobs, so we gotta give. So that, I think a lot of the incentives started with that, is that we want the jobs, so we gotta give this company all these tax incentives of these tools and instruments we were talking about to come over here. Now, they've done away with the border wars supposedly. I don't know if that's
Yeah, we're supposed to, they were supposed to have sort of a truce
right.
and not do that.
Right. Okay, so I have to tell this one development here in the Business Journal, and you all can also read the Business Journal anytime. It's go to the library, they have them at the library, or you can purchase a subscription. They're also online. But this is the this is the old Kansas City Star block on Grand. Is it Grand or Wyandotte? Sorry. 20th Street along both sides of Walnut Street. So, both streets were on. The company is 3D Development, and they actually have a couple of developments going on right now that they're using these tax incentives and tools, and they're going to be building. It sounds pretty cool, I have to tell you, it sounds like a kind of a cool deal, like it's not a horrible thing, but they're redeveloping all those buildings on that block. Again, the Kansas City, the old, not the new Kansas City Star production
It's
area.
the Star building before that.
The Star building, right, that was the offices now, and because it's blight, they got all these incentives, but they're building, it's a village, that's the new the hot way to call a development project. So they're gonna have 230 apartments with 322 parking spaces, They're going to have 75,000 square feet of office and retail renovations, 12 lockup and row house dwellings, what else? Okay, so that's it. It looks really pretty, the renderings. But they went to town on these incentives. So here's the list that they're getting. Whoever works for 3D development, they've got some good people who are finding these out for them. So they're getting a 15-year tax abatement at 75%, and then 10 more years at 37.5%. They are getting a 25-year sales tax exemption on all the construction materials. I mean, wouldn't you like to go to Home Depot and you know, if you're building a house or renovating a house and not have to pay taxes on that, wouldn't that be great? I mean, you know, some of the houses that we work on that we're renovating are in blight areas. We should apply. Why are we not applying for that?
We just found out.
We're gonna apply. We're gonna see how that goes. Okay, so they're also this is the one that we were like, what is that? So they're also getting a 25-year reimbursements of economic activity taxes, which we're still trying to figure out what that is exactly.
Right.
And a 1% sales tax imposed through the CID, the Community Improvement Development. Everybody in this area, businesses, condos, retail, all are gonna get a 1%. They're gonna have to start paying 1% more on anything they buy in the CID in order to support the 3D development. And who benefits?
We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, it looks pretty, and listen, as a real estate agent, we want things to look nice. We want people, you know, getting people to live downtown, in the urban core, Midtown, Westport. You have to have some amenities. People want to walk to restaurants and go shopping and go to sporting events and concerts and art galleries and all that. That's important. I'm not trying to take away from that.
Yeah.
That's why I love the Kansas City Museum being redeveloped. That's great. Oh my gosh. All the community civic activity that's gonna happen there is fantastic. I'm not so sure about this project. I'm not so sure how much this project, in comparison to everything they're getting, is really gonna give back to the community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the part that I'm just like, what?
Well, that's always the part that's kind of blurry, is what's the payoff for the city or for the citizens, especially when a lot of these are out-of-state developers.
Right,
I think they're coming from other cities and
right.
getting, you know, the incentives here. But does that money come back to the city? I think that's.
And just because also they're using blight over and over again, that's what it's like, this is not blight. They're also doing the Freight House Village, which is over by the train track area. They're gonna do some development over there. But it's great. Is it blight? I don't know. I still don't know how. I just don't know how blight is determined. It just seems like if you have enough money, you're gonna build something that'll bring some jobs and make things look pretty, then yeah, the entities that we've talked about tonight are gonna say it's blight. Oh my God, I can't believe the time just flies. We said when we were doing this is more than one show, because there's so much, right? And so we're gonna do this again.
Yeah, we'll do it again, and whatever we didn't touch today, we'll touch next time.
We've got.
Once again, we're not developers. We're just people who love Kansas City, and we're interested in developing and what's going on, and we want to share what we learn and hopefully inspire other people to get involved in what's happening in the city, in your neighborhoods, in your community, and I guess in a way we're trying to demystify development.
Yeah,
I think
I think that's
that's probably what we're trying to do.
yeah.
So,
And we're new to this, we're figuring it out. Damon's researching his butt off, into the night, figuring this stuff out. I mean, he's telling me all this stuff, I get to read it, and it's been fun for me. But we would love for everybody to get more involved, even with us in this process, to give us, we've got a page, we've got a
Yeah.
Twitter account, we've got anything
Instagram,
that
Facebook.
you can think of. We have the KC Dev Report. We would love for you all to start talking with us and letting us know what's like if you see something that you're like, what's going on with that? I would love to hear what you're thinking about. Like, what is it that you would like to know more about? How did that get developed, and how is that affecting us collectively? We're not the experts. We just, like Damon said, we just love this city, and we want to see more equity, more innovation, and a place where we all feel really proud to live because we're collectively paying for these development projects. So this was fun.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do it again.
And if you want to tune in and kind of interact with us, if you got questions or things you want to add, you can always go to the KC DEV report. That's the KC Dev Report, Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. That's also our email, and we have a website, thekcdevreport.com.
And it's on a podcast. Not this, this will get uploaded to the podcast. So just wherever you go to get your podcast, just search for the KC Dev Report, and you'll get to hear our voices again. Especially if you missed the first few episodes. Okay, all right.
All right. I'm Damon Patterson,
And I'm Franny Knight.
and this is the KC Dev Report.
Research that's equally valuable.